Our top focus at this hour, US President Joe Biden has made it clear that the US will not unilaterally lift sanctions against Iran unless it first adheres to its nuclear deal commitments. For more on this story, our correspondent Nick Harper is now joining us live from Washington, D.C. Thanks for joining us, Nick. Now, President Biden has made his stance pretty clear on lifting sanctions on Iran, an emphatic no. Tell us how this is being perceived in the country and how do we expect Iran to react?
Yeah, it's interesting. A very emphatic no from the new president, Joe Biden. A very terse, resolute response when he was asked in that interview just a single word, no, and then asked a second question and he just nodded his head. He didn't elaborate, just made it very clear that that was the position that he wanted to take. And I think looking at his body language in that clip that we played just a moment ago makes it very clear that he is going to remain firm to this position. He wants Iran to comply first. Right. Now, there was a thinking that Joe Biden would have this position when he came into office, that he would want to effectively draw a line in the sand very early on in his presidency to say to Iran that he is not going to blink first. He wants Tehran to be able to be the ones who come into compliance, and then the United States would look to lift sanctions. Now, obviously, Tehran feels very differently. They feel the opposite has to happen, that those economic sanctions need to be lifted first, and then they would return to the negotiation table and also bring down their uranium enrichment. It is a very difficult one to navigate, but Joe Biden making it clear that this is his position and he isn't going to budge from it.
Right. Now, the nuclear deal, of course, has been hanging by a thread for a while, and Iran had hoped that President Biden would reverse Trump's stance on the deal. So what is the future of this controversial deal as of now?
Well, I think the real hope lies in the ability to get everyone back to the negotiating table. But here we have two countries, the United States and Iran, continuing to be at loggerheads, even though we have a new US administration. Now, Joe Biden has always said throughout that he's all about multilateralism. He's about working with other countries to make things happen, as opposed to the Trump administration that was much more about unilateral action. Donald Trump taking that unilateral decision to pull out of the deal, to scupper the plans for the way forward. Joe Biden really wants to try and work with countries. So we're likely to see pressure from the other 5 signatories of the deal on the United States to try and make some wiggle room and to be able to have some sort of negotiation. Joe Biden in turn will outreach, I'm sure, to those 5 countries to see if there's any hopes of being able to them putting pressure on Tehran to bring them to the negotiating table. Currently, as it stands, though, there really does not look like a future for the deal, unless one side backs down and decides that they're happy to act in a way that they're currently saying that they do not intend to do.
Right. Nick, my final question, a strong condition from President Biden to return to the deal if Tehran complies completely. Now, will this happen in the near future at all?
Well, it seems somewhat unlikely. You mentioned a moment ago that they just within the last few weeks have reached 20% capacity when it comes to uranium enrichment. We also know from a UN report put out in the last couple of weeks that they've started to make equipment that allows them to make uranium metal, and that in turn can make the core of a nuclear warhead. Of course, Tehran throughout has said this is not about attaining a nuclear weapon, it's about energy production. But at this stage, going forward, with Tehran making it very clear that they don't intend to reduce, to comply to the conditions of the deal, and with the United States saying that they're not going to lift economic sanctions until Iran does so, it seems as though the path forward is looking rather obscure.
Right. All right, Nick, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for all your inputs and thank you for joining us on this broadcast. Available in your country, download the app now and get all the news updates on the move.